So life is about choices. If we want change in our lives, we can either change in a state of pain and suffering, or we can change in a state of joy and love. So I'd been hallucinating for, as I say, 3 to 4 days. Furniture was turning into people watching me, talking to me. I thought the hairs on my legs were growing into people. And as I moved in the duvet, I thought I was killing these people. I was swinging a walking stick, one of my father's walking sticks, around the dining room because I thought these people were trying to break into the house. I was taken to hospital, and after Valium to calm me down, which didn't last very long as it happens, I was then obviously put into a hospital bed. Now, I'd been to the hospital previously, but I'd signed myself out. The ward they put me on initially was dreadful. So now they put me on a different ward. And I then had spiders and snakes crawling onto the bed, crawling all over my face for a couple of days. It was absolutely horrific. This experience was horrendous. But for me, it was scary, and my blood pressure was through the roof. It wasn't scary enough. I went back to the office. As I say, I took some time out, and we walked around in the sun. But when I went back and I started to see the behaviour that was on display with my business partners, the way that they felt they could just discuss my health, my well-being, my return to work in front of these people. I couldn't get over that, for a start, that the other partners would allow this to happen. My father in particular, he had his head in his hands. And when he told me not to even bring the conversation up with my other partner, I figured he turned his back on me too. So I couldn't beat the three of them. But I decided I was going to fight. But it was like passive fighting. I just wasn't going to be controlled by these people. I wasn't going to allow them to push me out of the business and end up with nothing that I thought was mine. So another decade of pain and suffering and destructive behaviour, killing myself passively, not eating, not sleeping, the depression that came on, the anxiety, the believing things that people were saying, in the end ended up with the inevitable near-death experience. And when I reflect on what happened after making the choice to change, after all of that, I do wonder why. Because with the whole thing of passively fighting these people, I was playing into their hands. I was in essence doing exactly what they needed me to do in order for them to continue the cycle, or me to continue the cycle, where they could say, look at his behaviour. And they could continually point the finger at me. Well, I've said this before, I was pointing my fingers at them. They weren't living up to my expectations of what a business partner should be. They weren't doing things that I believe they should be doing. So we were all pointing fingers at each other and we were getting nowhere. But after the NDE, once I'd made the choice to change the relationship with myself, once I'd begun to understand myself, once I'd actually started to find out who I truly am underneath the armour and the facade that, eventually you don't even know who you are, let alone what you're projecting to the outside world, I then say, well, I don't want it anyway. So you have to wonder why we go through our lives destroying relationships. We think that we need to earn this money, we need this job, we don't want to lose face, whatever reason it is that we do these things. And then we come to a point where we have the opportunity to look at ourselves from a different perspective, and we think, well, I don't want it anyway. But in the meantime, we've lost so much in our lives whilst we are drinking and we are overing. When people start saying to us, you're drinking too much, our partners, we just take it personally, think they're having a go at us. So any breakup in relationships we blame on them, and then we end up drinking more. It's so counterproductive to our lives when we act that way. And really, we need to take that step back. We need to discuss our issues. We need to look at our behaviours. We need to make these choices. And we end up then, we can change the relationship with ourselves, with the alcohol specifically in my situation, but overing generally. And we can change the outcome of what's happened. We can't change the past, obviously, but we can change the outcome. And we can, again, create a life that we will love to live. So if it is something that you would like to discuss, I'll say it again, then please contact me.